Now I'm gonna sneak right behind you and adjust this camera because we know KC's not shy. Jake, oh, that's too easy. Have a good show.
I did forget that thing. That's cigars though. You heard him yet? Saying we're on? I'm on a pogo stick over here.
Good morning. This is Let'sTalkPod.com. We're live here in Colorado. It's a beautiful day for cannabis. We're here with the Cannabis Business Hour with Mr. Charles T. Houghton. Good morning, Mr. Houghton.
Good morning. This is Charles, the Cannabusiness Attorney. I can be reached at charles@thecannabusinessattorney.com. I got my partner in crime here, KC. KC.
Good morning. It's howtomarijuana.com. We're talking law, pot, and politics. It's a big day, actually. There's an election going on this evening here in Colorado, which faces the previous Attorney General, John Suthers, against Mary Lou Makepeace. And the dividing line that is clearly seen is the issue of pot. Attorney General John Suthers, while he has signed all the marijuana laws and enforced them, he is not in favor of cannabis legalization to the degree that many of us would hope. So there is a big political movement right now and a big election this evening. So right here, right now in Colorado, it's pot for potholes versus just say no.
Yeah, and if you're in the Colorado Springs area and you are a registered voter, I encourage you to get out there and be heard. That's one of your inalienable rights in the United States is to vote.
There are 89,000 voters already, so we're getting attention out there. It'll be interesting. We'll be actually watching it live tonight at the Cannabis Club from 6 to midnight.
Yeah, and what's the address for that?
That is 332 East Colorado Avenue. You can find us at studioa64.com. Pot in Politics live tonight.
Yeah, and again, it is a very important election. John Suthers was the former district attorney for the 4th Judicial District. He is a native son. He was born and raised in Colorado Springs.
That's right.
Actually, I think he was born someplace really weird and then moved to Colorado Springs. Anyway, he considers this his hometown. He has been a reluctant soldier in the war.
To say the least, yes, the Attorney General, his job is to enact and enforce all those laws that we pass. And when Amendment 20 and Amendment 64 legalized marijuana here in Colorado, he was a reluctant warrior, to say the least. But yet he did
fulfill the requirements of his job. He did that. And hat goes off to someone whose principles are one place and heart is in one place and his job duties are in another. And he didn't shirk that.
No, he did not. We have those laws today, and they're actually changed quite a bit. Here in Colorado, Mr. Houghton, has been, Governor Hickenlooper actually did sign several new laws into effect. The biggest one, I think, that affects most of our listeners and those around the country is the caregiver rules. Caregivers are usually the heart and soul of these movements to begin with before it becomes a business. I was a caregiver.
Well, and that's the way it started in Colorado.
That's right.
Under a caregiver model, not a business model. And this, I think, what we're going to see is kind of a step in the evolution of how these types of regulations and how caregivers are going to be perceived is going to move along. And the highlights of the bill are basically three. Number one, a very strong admonition, I guess would be a good way to put it, that you probably ought to register if you're a caregiver. It imposes a 99 plant count limit. And then Jack's amendment, which was added towards the end, which allows children with doctor's permission and with certain conditions to be able to medicate on school at school.
Yeah, that is a revolutionary change in America's stance and the drug-free school zone. So right now in Colorado, as of today, caregivers, if you're listening, there is a new hard plant limit of 99. You can request for an exemption of that with the state, but it is another form and process. You are requested to register for your own good, and you must register once you've been notified. What that means in legal speak is that in the past, caregivers, because we're growing marijuana in the child, we don't really want to advertise. We don't want to have everyone know that we have marijuana in our basement that we're carrying for patients because of the crime and issues that could come with it, theft, etc. So it is really hard for those caregivers to come out and register with the state. It's kind of scary because now everyone knows my address. The thought, though, is that it actually is designed to, quote unquote, help protect the caregivers, so that there is a law enforcement counter, as you like to say, that law enforcement officer would know before he broke down the door that that's a caregiver and not a pot dealer.
Exactly, and that was, when Casey and I were sitting on the task force, I made it a point of sitting next to the law enforcement dude every time, just to hear his take on what was going on. And what we learned was he just wanted to go home to his family without getting shot. And so his take on the whole thing was, if I know it's a legal grow, then I might just knock on the door and say, hey, we're here, let's, we need to have a look around, that kind of thing. Whereas if he has no idea, he's liable to go in full SWAT mode.
And that's no fun. That is not the way you want policemen coming to your door. So if you are a caregiver, we would suggest that you look at your personal situation and consider registering with the state in accordance with those new laws, so you're ahead of the curve and not behind the battering ram, so to speak.
Right. Yeah, literally behind the battering ram.
No,
also, too, it said that there's a 99 plant count hard limit, but that there was a provision to allow for an exemption. Does it give the criteria for what those are?
No, it does not. It's kind of like the exemption for how many patients you can care for. The law says 5, but then if you're in a situation, in a place, in a county, in a time that doesn't have access to cannabis, you can request that exemption to actually provide for more patients. But this is a shot across the bow for those caregivers. And this has been a battle going on since at least 2012, when recreational marijuana became legit. Representative Jonathan Singer from Longmont, we had him on it last week. I quote him, quote, we're really trying to make sure that caregivers are part of our regulatory system. And that's what this does. It puts you into the registration process. You are registered. One unique concession he called was the unenforced requirement that parents of marijuana patients under 18 grow their own cannabis. That's been very hard. We had Sharice in here last week. And if you don't grow cannabis and now you come to Colorado and you're expected not only be the mother of that child, but become a master grower and grow it,
yeah,
that made no sense.
And it doesn't, because, in order to do a good job with this, it's part science, part art.
Absolutely.
And part, that I've always joked around that in this industry, there's really 2 types of people. There are people, and they're the ones that run the retail stores and run the medical centers, and deal with the patients and customers and stuff like that, and stuff like that. And then there are plant people. And the plant people are very good at
talking to plants,
at growing. They have, part of them, I think, are part marijuana plant, because they just understand, what the plant needs, what's going wrong.
It is a science, it is an art. There are plant people and there are people. And what this allows those caregivers who are cultivators, specialists that spend hours, days, months, years with those plants, decades in many cases, growing that cannabis. Now those caregivers, if you're listening, you are allowed to grow for those patients under 18. That was not the case before. And this is a pretty cool one too, Mr. Houghton. It also sets up a task force that is going to work on public access to the marijuana testing labs for the public. So that has been denied. So if you're in Colorado and you've wondered, how can I test my cannabis as a caregiver or as an individual, it has not been possible. You could
Yeah,
not use
and
the state.
that's important to point out is that up until now, the only product that could be tested had to come from a licensed center or a licensed recreational store or a licensed grow facility, medical grow facility, or a licensed recreational or retail grow facility, or the concomitant, you like that word, concomitant?
I do like
Yeah,
that.
the concomitant MIP licenses, the medically infused product licenses. So if you were a caregiver and you were growing on your own, or if you acquired some marijuana legally, someone gave it to you, you know, you're
Right,
over
if
the
you
age of
did want to
21.
test it, there's no way for
There
you to
was-
test if that was safe or what the THC or CBD
Or if it was adulterated with something else,
heavy
or
metals,
or
mildew.
pesticides, you name it. You know, there's a lot of things that could have come into the supply chain, or even illicit drugs.
I do like that. You know, it has not happened yet, but there is a task force that is working on allowing public access for those caregivers and growers out there, and even patients that want to test maybe the product that their caregiver gave to them because they want to know what's going in their body. So that is a big change today across Colorado, which is the heart and soul of the cannabis movement right now.
Well, and you kind of look at it and you go, you know, why wouldn't you allow testing from pretty much anywhere? I mean, that's what the labs are there for. That's what they're set up to do.
Apparently, the industry was concerned about backlogs and not being able to have their marijuana tested in accordance to state requirements.
Well, I mean, if it becomes that big of a problem, I can assure that somebody will fill that void and open up new labs. Are
Wasn't
they
there a
worried
new
about?
lab that you were working on in Durango, one that opened up just recently? I think I saw. Yeah, I saw a listing last week. Looks like there's a new lab, and if you're out there, the testing lab is a very unique license issued by the state. In the past, when marijuana was not necessarily tested by law, it was more of a vanity issue and a quality control issue that wasn't often used because testing was often the last expense that you put your money on. Now, testing is becoming a mandatory requirement
On the
across,
recreational side.
and it will catch up, I think, with the medical. And now it'll allow it for the caregiver and the public. So marijuana testing labs, I think, are going to be a growing market for more American entrepreneurs.
Yeah,
the
and
demand is going to increase rather quickly.
And I think that one of the things that you need to be aware of is that if you are in the testing side of this, you can't hold any of the other licenses, even if it's in a separate corporation.
And there's basically 4 types of licenses: the right to sell it, the right to grow it, the right to infuse it, and the right to test it.
Right, but if you have the testing part, then you can't have any of the other 3.
In the past, the testing license has been one of the unsexy business models because, one, it cut you out of all those other opportunities to sell, grow, and infuse, and it wasn't required. I think the testing labs in Colorado are going to find out that they may be finding life-changing breaking medicines. We saw Charisse, how many cannabis strains are out there? How many CBDs? How many CBNs are out there, Mr. Houghton? They're going to be discovered in these labs that are going to affect people like we've seen Miss Charisse, or the children with the epilepsy, or the cancer patients, or the PTSD and insomnia. I think I want a lab, Mr. Houghton.
Oh yeah, well, and the thing is too is that if you start to look at other states, for example.
That's right. There are testing requirements going on, and some of them are actually using their universities and labs in their state. I think Florida actually had a requirement that it go through one of the universities there of the Florida state.
Yeah, and also too in Nebraska, there's
one of the no states.
Yeah, one of the no states has, and that's NO, not KNO.
That's right.
Like there's always that joke about Nebraska. I went to school at the University of Nebraska Law School, so I can make the joke, and that is, you know what the N on the football helmet stands for?
No cannabis.
Knowledge.
With that.
Yeah. Anyway, in Nebraska,
we love you.
Yeah, we love you. And the people in Nebraska are fantastic. I had a great time there. I know you're not supposed to have fun in law school, but I had fun in law school because of the people. Anyway.
And look where you ended up.
Yeah, look where I ended up.
A cannabis business attorney.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nebraska. You did a great job.
Anyway, the legislature there consists of just the Senate. They don't have, it's called unicameral, so they've only got the one side. And what they've done is we reported last week that they were that they had passed a kind of a watered down use of oils only type bill to allow medical marijuana in Nebraska. Well, another senator has come up with yet another idea, and this particular senator, you want to talk about watered down, the bill that she is pushing would allow marijuana to be used as medicine under the following circumstances. One is that it be used through the University of Nebraska Medical School or medical department.
That sounds great for the university. Way to go, Nebraska.
Yeah, but it's only the use of cannabidiol. Now, I'm going to look into my crystal ball because GW Pharmaceuticals has done research, and I'm not certain whether they have them yet or not, but they are trying to get patents and exclusive rights to the creation of cannabidiol. And so
that is a big game changer.
Yeah, and so if Nebraska is only allowing the use of cannabidiol, and there's only one company that produces it, well, guess what? They've just created a legislatively created monopoly. And unfortunately,
which is not what I prefer, actually. I like the entrepreneurial spirit of everybody can do this, like we have in Colorado, where it's not really a point system, it's not a lottery system, it's not a keeper of the gate systems like we're seeing in Nebraska, but it is first come, first serve. If your business is viable, you will.
You should have, like, what did you say, the chance to succeed or suck.
You have the right to suck or succeed.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
Anyway, you know, that's one way of looking at it. And then getting back to the lab, if you look historically at the state that have limited the number of licenses, for instance, in Illinois, or excuse me, in Nevada, they had 60 some odd licenses that were available, and they may be opening up more. But out of all of those licenses, only one person, there was like 300 applicants for the licenses, only one person applied for a lab license.
Isn't that amazing?
Well, guess who got the lab license?
The one person.
Yeah. And the same thing happened in Illinois. I think there was maybe 2 or 3 lab licenses that were applied for. And in Illinois, there's a mandatory testing requirement for all of the product. So if you don't think that those people are going to make out very well, if Illinois ever gets their stuff together, and we're going to talk a little bit about that here in just a minute.
It seems to be a little bit of a step back, a step forward. You know, we're having more and more patients register there in Illinois, but the process is a drudge sled.
Yeah, have you ever watched a drunk person walking down the street where they got that drunk shuffle where it's 3 steps forward, 2 back, and 1 to the side?
I think I have seen that.
Yes, well, that's what Illinois is faced with right now, is they're having a rough time getting the bill off the ground. Now, the governor is opposed to it and has made it fairly clear that he's opposed to it. But what I saw also is that there is now a push to get the legislation extended. They had a 4-year trial period.
That's right. It actually had a sunset clause.
Yeah, in 2017.
That's
and they're trying to get
not a fun clause if you have a lot of money invested in your cultivation system.
Yeah, and so that's what actually that's what the headline was all about, was trying to assuage the fears of investors that they're going to invest all this money and then in 2017 be out. So
that's a bullet to the head, and that's what we're seeing all across this country, and that's what we do here every day in the Cannabis Business Attorney Hour. Is if you look at those laws across the nation, whether it's Illinois, Washington, Nebraska, you can prepare for this, and you must be prepared.
Yeah, it is an opportunity ready for picking. All you have to do is look and see where the legislatures are, and then pick out the opportunity. So we're on letstalkpot.com. And we will be back on the other side, and we'll talk a little bit more about opportunities and where to look for them. clear.
Yeah, that's a good one. Those Colorado's a unique,
Yeah.
unique changes.
You guys submit it when we're done here today?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I have the press release ready to go out. I'm going to start tagging everyone. Just hitting every media organization I can in Kansas City directly without paying for a press release. I think I'll try it directly first.
Press release of what?
Of our event in Kansas City.
Okay.
Started with local native returns home. Okay.
Let's bring in an attorney with him.
That's right. I was gonna, have you. That was the Cannabusiness Attorneys. I was gonna bring up the DC Dealer Protection Act.
I love that.
I thought that was fun too.
I want to talk a little bit about Pennsylvania, and they're attacking this from two fronts now. One hemp, one cannabis. And First Security Bank dropping out.
Yeah, Pennsylvania Attorney General backs hemp. Is that the same one?
I think so. And then talk about infused coffee.
That was fun.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Montel Williams knows how to snowboard.
Yeah, right.
That's his big brothers on snowboards.
3 ways. Give them, grow them, God's approval. Mayor Bowser. Thank you.
Okay, I wonder what the music's going to be.
Right. Little reggae beat this morning.
Yeah, I love it. Something from Jamaica, man. Anyway, we are back. When we left, we were talking about picking opportunities and where to go look for them.
There's a lot of picking going on, Mr. Allen.
Yeah, and one of the places, we talked about Nebraska, and that, that latest bill, which looks like it's getting overwhelming support, that may ace out a lot of people in Nebraska, but it's worth keeping your eye on.
Everything is. Yes.
Yeah.
Watch the marijuana matrix and look for places and chances that you have. Even if the University of Nebraska is going to do this, they still need supplies of pots, pans, soil, and nutrients, and bags, etc. So there's still a lot in that supply line that needs to be paid for and bought, and America's going to do it. So thank you, Mr. No State. Nebraska and Oklahoma is still sticking their little fingers into the problem and making more problems than they're solving, it seems like.
Yeah, and we were talking also a little bit about Illinois. Illinois' program, it was originally a pilot program, and it was had a 4-year life. It was supposed to end in 2017, and under current law, it will end in 2017. But no one anticipated that it was going to take this long to get it off the ground.
And there's a lot of reasons for that. There's certain interests that do not want this to happen. It's obvious by the votes, and it's obvious by the industry that cannabis is a threat to a lot of established businesses, whether it's big pharma or big alcohol or big government. We have seen the truth, Mr. Houghton. This last week, we saw a woman that was on pharmaceuticals and could not live a life.
Yeah.
And now she's living a productive life. I think I talked to her or looked up on Facebook this morning, and Sharice has been now 8, 9, 10 days without seizures. This is like worth a Nobel Peace Prize. If it wasn't for the fact that this was cannabis, these people would be giving business awards and be given Nobel Peace Prizes for discovering the cure to epilepsy. But because it says cannabis in front of it, the rest of our country and those Nebraska senators and all those people that are trying to monopolize this, it infuriates me.
It does me too, because I mean, if you had taken, and I've said it before, if you take the stigma away from marijuana, from cannabis, if someone walked out of the deepest, darkest jungles of Brazil with this plant right now, with no stigma, they would be hailed as a hero.
That's right. Possible cure for cancer, possible cure for insomnia, PTSD, epilepsy. We've seen it. We have seen it. This is not theoretical. We've seen it with our own eyes.
Now, we can't say that it cures cancer. We can't say that it does any of those things. But I also remind people that up until just a few years ago, we didn't know exactly how aspirin worked. We knew that it worked, but we didn't know exactly the molecular mechanism by which it does what it does.
And yet it was the most used drug in America.
Yeah, and it comes from tree bark.
How about that?
Yeah, imagine that, a plant.
A plant.
Yeah, and so, you know, the fact, I think what because of the stigma, what I've seen anyway, and you can chime in, is that cannabis is being held to a hypercritical standard that people that want to continue this reefer madness craziness, it is the mechanism by which they're using to keep it out of the hands of the people that need it. Now, unlike a lot of other pharmaceutical drugs and compounds and things like that, we have yet to see anyone die from an overdose of marijuana.
Yeah, it is hypercritical, and it's really is hypocrisy is what it is. It's hypercritical hypocrisy when you can label this plant as having no medicinal use on the same schedule as LSD, and yet the government holds a patent on it, and yet they're giving it to the University of Nebraska. It's time to end this, and that's why we're here today, and I want to thank everyone for listening, because you are the people that are going to change it. It's the people on the ground that reach out to their representatives like we do and like others have that are changing these laws.
What was that lady, Lisa? Lisa from Kansas.
Bleeding Kansas.
Yes. It's like, oh my God, I listened to her, and it's like, you know, she's one of those people that it simply stated she'd had enough.
She's had enough. And then we had Mike Golden and Damon Beck. Average Americans, carpenters, mothers, marijuana mavens, and mavericks across this country that are getting up and saying enough is enough. My family or friend is dying, and this is our right.
Yeah.
Or I don't like alcohol. I think cannabis is safer. Let's try that for a change.
Yeah, exactly. And it's I hope it's a wave that's taking over. But, you know, again, Lisa, I think, put it a lot better than I could have, and that is that she doesn't perceive this as a fight over marijuana. She perceives this as a fight for freedom. That, you know, back to the people and stuff like that. And she also said something that is so profound that, you know, one says, just like, we used to have guts around here.
That's right. So tip of the hat to Bleeding Kansas, Fire It Up Kansas, Show Me Cannabis out there. We're going to be there June 5th. So in Kansas City at the Uptown. So please join us. I have a little bit of interesting news, Mr. Houghton. We talk about the law all the time here. And what happens when law meets reefer madness? We know that D.C. has passed to decriminalize the possession of cannabis. So the city of D.C. approved cannabis for adult use and was about to set up their own system of supply and delivery, right?
Yep.
So what happens is Representative Andy Harris, a Republican from Maryland, and many of his friends decided to thwart the legalization effort and stop the city of D.C. from actually setting up a supply line. What are the unintended consequences, Mr. Houghton? I'll read you the headline. D.C. pot legalization has become what? The Dealer Protection Act of 2015.
Isn't that, I mean, you want to talk about unintended consequence. Okay, we're going to eradicate marijuana legally. And the unintended consequences, the black market goes crazy.
Right. So right now, because of what's happened between the political infighting between the city of DC and our Congress, specifically Representative Andy Harris, Republican from Maryland, who is now trying to blame the city for going forward with legalization, even though the city approved it. I thought Mr. John Falcicio, the chief of staff for Mayor Muriel E. Browser, countered, and I quote, "In DC, it should be called it shouldn't be called the black market. It should be called the Harris market. If there's an uptick in the black market, it's thanks to Harris." And what does that mean? In DC, because of the law, you have the right to have 3 ways of getting that marijuana. 1, someone gives it to you. 2, you grow it. Or 3, a doctor says you can have it. The problem is there's no mechanism of delivery. So where do you go? The BLACK, the big bad black market. And right now, I read an article, Mr. Houghton, they're just walking into bars and lobbies and hotels and passing around grams for $20 a shot. And that adds up to, and this will startle people in Colorado, a $770 ounce. Right here in Colorado, because of legalization, because of the supply chains that have been established, the American entrepreneur, we've lowered the price of pot, increased production, and now we're paying between $100 to $200 for a high quality grade marijuana that's never been seen before. So Representative Andy Harris, please take your thumb off the heart of DC and let that city do what it should do.
Well, and what it is it becomes kind of a microcosm. And I want to talk about this for just a little bit. If you think about the history of marijuana, for the first 2,000 years that it was used, no problem.
No problem.
Okay. Then comes the United States government and starts branding it, the devil's weed and all the rest of that and all the hype that goes along with it. And they spent tens of thousands of dollars telling us that we were all going to go to hell and start growing, our children were going to have feet growing out of their ears.
Jumping out of windows.
And jumping out of windows and there was going to be mayhem. And what's that line from Dragnet, the movie, that sheep are going to start fornicating with people, and I mean it's just
cats and dogs.
Yes. Yeah, cats
and dogs, but it never happened except for madness.
But what's happened though is that for the last 80 years during this reefer madness, people have been willing to fight and die and sell their freedom to partake of this plan. Now, part of it is driven by money. I'm not going to, I'm not going to be Pollyannish about it. I've got eyes. I know what's going on. But the fact of the matter is that this particular industry just doesn't die. But what you can do is that you could put a whole lot of people at risk for going to jail and populate privately funded prisons and, drain your tax dollars prosecuting people that shouldn't be prosecuted. And DC is a microcosm of what happens when you try and put the thumb on people who refuse to have their thumb put on. And, it is a beautiful example of an unintended consequence. We're going to keep the streets safe. We're going to ban marijuana. We're going to make sure that you can't distribute it. We're going to kill the industry. And yet it moves happily along, illegal. And I don't think that's exactly what, is it Senator or Representative Harris decided that, when he was going through this, that was on his radar.
Yes, and the Representative Harris, because of his unintended circumstances, he's trying to thwart legalization, and by not allowing supply and distribution through the government, he's actually created perhaps the most beautiful black market in America right now, and that is Washington, D.C., our bloody capital, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, and of all the places.
Of all the places.
That you want to have a handle on this, our nation's capital.
And we call this governing. That seems like a misnomer. It sounds like the lack of governing. The Dealer Protection Act of 2015. Thank you, Mr. Representative Andy Harris, Republican from Maryland. You have done what drug dealers could not do for 79 years. Have a market where they can sell openly and have no fear of going to jail. Please, DC, let's fight back and let's work to fix this, because there's no way that we, the people, should be told what to do by our government. It's called a representative government. And without representation, should be no taxation or governance. It's absurd to me to see that the city has voted for this. It reminds me of the battle in Wichita, where cities in Wichita and DC are voting to legalize it, and they're getting kickback from their attorney general and our Congress. This is America, I thought, Mr. Houghton.
Well, welcome to the People's Republic of DC.
The People's Republic of DC. I like that.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. I actually knew a guy that had one of the, I think the only cultivation license in DC. And it was comical talking with him. Delightful individual, very talented grower, very talented businessman. And, I don't think he wants me telling, what his name is on air. But anyway, I've known him for years. He is almost comical about it because he was limited to 99 plants under the rules in DC. He was growing in DC. He showed me pictures of these plants, and I've seen smaller trees. I mean, he was growing big plants. And the thing that was comical about it is that because the city of the District of Columbia had set up a inspection program, and he was the only place that was growing it, the inspectors showed up for coffee every morning. And, they'd say, anything different here today than there was yesterday? No, it's pretty much the same. I got the same 99 plants, and everything's fine. Same. Here's your coffee. Sit and talk about the weather for a little bit. But they were trying to figure out, something to do. They had a job to do. And one of their jobs was to stop by this guy's place every morning and inspect it every day, which I thought was just crazy, but at least he was able to grow the plants. The problem was that once the plants were harvested, it became kind of like hemp, it was, and then what?
Yeah, in DC right now, if you do want to grow it, they do have the right to grow as many as 3 plants to maturity at one time.
Yeah, if you're not licensed as an individual, you can do that.
That's correct. And since there is no way to license yourself in DC currently, there's I imagine there's a lot of marijuana plants popping up right there. But yes, welcome to the People's Republic of
District of DC.
That's right. Thank you, Representative Harris.
Yeah, and moving on, we were talking a little bit about Illinois and what was going on there and the fits and starts that they were going through, and the fact that it's a pilot program and it only had a 4-year life, and so would have sunsetted in 2017. There is now a group that is afoot that is trying to get the 2017 sunset extended. Now, here's what's comical about that is that if you're trying to get the pilot program extended before the very first plant is put into production and the very first dispensary sells the first gram, it seems to me like there's something that's fundamentally wrong with the system.
Yes, indeed. And we've seen that in Chicago. There's a lot of ways to do this right. There's a few ways to do it wrong. I think the secret point system and the lottery system is a perfect way to do it wrong. It just invites secrecy, questionability, and
lawsuits. You want to talk about lawyers, guns, and money.
That's right. We're seeing that in Florida with lottery, lawsuit. We're seeing that in Illinois with a point system, lawsuit. Do you think they're going to be able to extend that act, Mr. Houghton?
I don't know. The governor's giving a fair amount of pushback in Illinois, so I don't know. But again, it depends on citizens who are willing to say, listen, we want this medicine, and to have a sunset in 2017 when they invest millions of dollars into getting one of these licenses is, insanity. It ought to be defined that way.
It really shows. Yes, it is crazy. That's reefer madness regulation. It's going to stop the market development. The best business model I've seen so far, hands down, is Colorado.
Yeah,
it is. It's not a point system. It's the rules. It's the regulations. If you can figure them out, you can be in business, and that's what we teach here every day at the Cannabis Business Hour with Mr. Charles T. Houghton. And you can't touch this. And we're on letstalkpot.com.
See you on the other side. on Mike's route. Thank you. What's that? Turn that down low. Which one is it plugged into? That one? Okay, I know not to touch that one.
So it gets, because the commercials get real loud.
Yeah.
So that's what it's called, it's not distortion. Natural thing, we've got it on YouTube already. It's like 20, 30 videos in the first 3 hours. So I newsletter about it. I'm going to try to print little flyers and posters in Kansas City to have them delivered to Kansas City. So I may just let them sheet print out paper posters right now. You check in the.
How are you going to get to Valero?
I'll probably just have them delivered there.
I mean, but who's going to hand them out?
No, because you check in, you know, have them hand them up in a bathroom at the Uptown Theater, stuff like that.
Okay.
And we have about 20 state salts, about 20% there, 2.5 weeks left. So I'm going to start really pumping these people. It seems there's a certain bit of resistance in this area, and internal fighting between the organizations.
Oh, here we go. Kind of like MPP and MIG. And
right, so we're seeing that, which I didn't expect. But we're going to have an hour press release. I'm going to start doing that to Kansas City, every radio and every TV and every business journal in Kansas City today, and see if we get any polls for interviews. We'll put Nashville down as a contact for interviews, so it doesn't have you and me as the front man for it.
Makes sense.
Right, yeah, so it looks, it gives us depth. The rallies are picking up big. The rallies are doing much better than ours.
Unfortunately, you get monetized them.
I'm wondering, that's what I'm thinking. You know, I can sell DVDs and do good hits. I'm going to try to sell our DVDs right there. You know, hey, 99, 99, 99, whatever. Or I could try to set them up for a subscription, pay $9.99.
More of you who could be saving hundreds of dollars every month on your mortgage.
You're on 2, right?
Yes.
Brain kernel.
I don't know, I haven't had either.
What? Warm weather? Where?
All right. That's good rise and shine. Yeah, it's music. I like that.
Yeah, I love that a lot.
It's a Cannabis Business Hour live here with Mr. Charles T. Houghton. My name's K.C.Stark with HowToMarijuana.com. We've covered a lot of space today. We've gone over the new rules for caregivers in Colorado, the new rules for schools in Colorado, the new plant limits in Colorado. We've touched on Illinois, the application process. We've reached out to D.C. and covered the Dealer Protection Act of 2015.
Yeah, which is
That's
just
going to be a riot. You're going to have a lot of dealers head to D.C. Thank you very much, Mr. Harris. And now we're going on to Pennsylvania. There's some big movement out there as well, Mr. Houghton.
yeah. There's actually Pennsylvania is kind of hitting this beastie on 2 different fronts. One is cannabis, and the cannabis laws are beginning to take shape and moving forward there. But there's also a real big push for hemp and hemp products. And, you know, I went on a tour of a hemp production facility here in Colorado. They produce not only, I mean, they process not only hemp, but pretty much any kind of biomass is what they call it, any plant material.
That's right, for all the essential oils like tips and anything.
Well, and you know, anything that's left over after you've taken away the part that you wanted to use, whether it's corn stalks or you know, you name it, they process it, and they produce a couple of products, actually 3 or 4 products, out of this leftover stuff. One of the things that they produce out of hemp is pulp that they make paper out of, and it's got to be the coolest paper you've ever seen. It doesn't feel like paper; it feels like cotton almost. And then they showed me some other products, paper towels, toilet paper, other paper products that they were making out of that biomass. And incidentally, the toilet paper, if anybody's wondering, did have a light greenish cast to it, but it was varying degrees of percentage of hemp that was included in it. And same thing with paper towels, and it's a very promising industry, and I wish them well. I hope that they can get everything that they need to get off the ground and going. We're still looking for production facilities here in Colorado, but here, on a Cannabusiness Attorney and howtomarijuana.com, we want you to look not only at the plant as a way of doing things, but also other business opportunities. So in Pennsylvania, if you're in Pennsylvania or contemplating moving to Pennsylvania, I think you need to be looking at, both fronts. Cannabis as medicine and hemp as a
food, fuel, and fiber. That's right. Super fiber.
Yeah, it almost sounds like
Super
something
food.
out of something you'd see at a state fair. Tomorrowland, something for food, fuel, and fiber.
And that is what it is. It really is Tomorrowland. And what has happened there in Pennsylvania is, you're right, Mr. Houghton, it sets up these two different market potentials for marijuana and hemp. And hemp, for clarity, is defined as having less than 0.3% of the psychoactive THC compared to the 5 or 20% that is typically found in high-grade medical recreational cannabis.
Yeah, and the thing that I think people need to recognize, if you haven't already, please do a little bit of research on hemp versus cannabis. They are the plants are related genetically, but they're different plants. They're not exactly the same. When they first start growing, you'd be hard pressed to tell the difference, but eventually they do take on different characteristics. And if you're growing a plant that has, by law in most states, Colorado included, a less than 0.3% THC content, they're usually pretty high in CBDs, and that can be extracted. Then there's a lot of other products that can be extracted, biofuel, sugars that
Yeah, it
can
really
be
is a
distilled.
super fuel, a super fiber, a super food. I digest hemp now on a daily basis. It's a very complex amino acid. It has the omega-3s and omega-6s that you usually have to find from fish, and it has the proteins that you usually have to find from meat. So it is a remarkable food source. If we look at that, you mentioned it, Mr. Houghton, it seems like last week they set up the legislation to actually allow it to be treated for cancer, seizures, Parkinson's disease, Crohn's disease, diabetes, and chronic pain. That's a big one. Whether I have a torn rotary cuff and a blown knee, I don't have cancer, but I prefer cannabis and oils and treatments over pharmaceutical pills and products.
And as well you should. And as long as you're getting the relief that you need from the product, again, this is the Cannabusiness, hour. And what we're talking about is cannabis as a business. But, sometimes we just have to go back and get back to the fundamentals. And one of the things that we always say, and if you haven't heard it before, it's the picks and shovels. During the gold rush in Colorado and in California, the bulk of the people that made money on it weren't mining for gold. They were selling picks and shovels to people who had this dream. And you apply that same logic to the cannabis or hemp industry. I don't have to grow cannabis. I don't have to sell it. I don't have to have anything to do with it.
But it still needs to be transported, cared for, cured, packaged, labeled, marketed, tested over and over.
Yeah, and you have to build out the facility where it's grown. You have to rehab a facility where it's sold. You have to go before city councils. You've got to pay your
real
taxes.
estate, the insurance, the heating, the ventilation, the security,
Right.
the CPA,
Accountants, lawyers,
So every one of you that does any of those products, it doesn't really matter what state you're going to be in. If you position yourself and you know the law, you can prepare for those changes. And just for a side note, Pennsylvania, the primary crop during the 18th and 19th century for 200 years was hemp in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and again, we need to get back to that. You know, I grew up in a small farming community in southeast Colorado. It has been a tragedy during my entire life that the farmers are getting put off of the farms. And you know, you've seen the you know, Farm Aid and all the rest of that John Cougar Mellencamp did. Willie Nelson joined in on the deal. It's a real problem. If we want to put real Americans to work in real jobs, let's put the farmers back on the farm where they belong, number one. And number two, also keep your eyes out for these other things. I saw something interesting. In Washington State, there's a company that has started selling infused coffee.
Yes, the K-Cups of coffee. I
Yeah.
love it. We met them up there at the Marijuana Investor Summit. They weren't able to give me a sample because they couldn't ship it across state lines, but I look forward to having my cannabis coffee.
Yeah, and to me, you know, I'm not totally certain how they do it, because I know if you heat it up to a certain point, it doesn't work anymore. But they did figure out a way to infuse coffee and sell it in K-Cups.
Yes, and that's a huge position. It really is just one simple example of how profound you as Americans can change your lives with these businesses. So if you look at Pennsylvania, it has opened up new markets for hemp and cannabis for diseases that have been causing this country a loss of productivity and a loss of personal capital and a loss of lives. You know, I use cannabis for chronic pain. I use it for clothing, and I use it for food. I cannot power my Chevy with it yet, but that would be very nice.
Well, that's coming, because one of the byproducts of biomass and also of hemp is a liquid that is complex sugars that you can just, you ferment, just like you do with any biofuel, and you create fuel because the fermentation process creates an alcohol that can be burned. And so it's not long before the black cannabis mobile is going to be fueled by the product that it is promoting.
That one that's printed on the side. You know, I'm reading more of the article, and here's a quote from the Department of Agricultural Secretary there in Pennsylvania, and I quote, "Hemp has over 25,000 different products that can be made from hemp, from cloth to rope and brake pads. It's environmentally friendly. It doesn't deplete the soil of nutrients." I mean, this is not only good for the people of Pennsylvania, it's good for the planet.
Well, yes, and again, if you go back to the analogy that I was putting forth before, if you walked out of the jungles of Brazil with this plant in your hand, and part of it was medicinal, and part of it was the 25,000 other products, you would be hailed as a
Nobel
hero.
Prize for that.
Yeah, there ought to be.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah, and so, and again, it's not only the products and the earth-friendly way in which they're made, it puts people to work. And, everybody says, that we're out of this recession and stuff like that. I'm not seeing that 100% across the board.
Especially for our farmers. We look at the jobs that America has lost for textiles. We've become a service industry nation. That in the long term is not the way we should go. I think bringing agricultural and textile production back to America only makes sense if it can be made by Americans and sold by Americans internally. For the first time in 79 years, I believe we have billions of dollars that are going to come back to our great shores.
Well, and I think we've got to fight for every job that we can get. And if we can put people back to work on the farm doing what it was that they love to do, and hopefully their children will follow in their footsteps, and it becomes a lifestyle that I think we ought to be promoting, that rural, producing something that's going to make a difference in society and the way society operates.
And we've seen that from shore to shining shore, from Alaska to Florida. Mr. Houghton and I have traveled, and we've worked with entrepreneurs. Right now in Alaska, they have the ABC board. They had a big event this weekend. Our alumni were reporting back on the progress being made there. So really, literally from sea to shining sea, this country is on the verge of an agricultural, medical, social revolution unlike anything we've seen. And I want to invite everybody that wants to be in this business to join us at howtomarijuana.com. Meet us in Kansas City on June 5th. It'll be an 8-hour event of education, information, and awareness to help prepare you.
And you're going to have a great time. You're going to get more information than you can imagine. You can meet Casey and I in person, and we're just a lot of fun. So anyway, we want to see you June 5th, Kansas City, the Uptown Theater. This is Charles, the Cannabusiness Attorney, and Casey at howtomarijuana.com. Lawyers, guns, and money.
Thank you, Chicago.
Thank you. Thank you. Take the whole shoot mask this time so you get the.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Excellent. Would you like to get a level?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'll turn this down.
Here, let me call that phone number.
Okay.
So you can have
Welcome
it.
to our show. This is
Sure,
your weekly
use-
dose of wellness. I'm Deborah Howe.
And
Today's
then
guest
let's
is
go outside.
Dr. Gary Fredman. Okay. Cool.
We had a guy in Arizona that was on after us typically.
Stand by. I'll go ahead and get this for you.
Okay, great.
Lawyers, guns, and money. That's what I do. Man, low, I love it. Lawyers, guns, and money. Oh, should be lawyers, drugs, and money. Good show, Mr. Allen.
Yeah, it was. This is getting more and more fun all the time. Yes.
That's what I like. Can we get together this afternoon and show you that thing from Casey and Jay?
Mhm.
An application.
Yeah, I've got 2 o'clock that I'll be done by 3:30.
Perfect. Okay, well, just let me know and we'll get together.
Okay. You can come over to the new day.
Oh, I want to. Yeah. We'll be over there. Let me know. We need to fix your website. Just let Nashville know he wants to meet with you. It'll probably take about 4 hours, maybe 5 hours. Since we pay him, it's just that website just needs some love. Yeah. I looked at it today, like, oh my God. So 1980s.
That's what you do in 15 minutes at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, but Nashville's gonna make it look really good for you.
Okay, good. Need all the help I can get.
Yeah, that's what we're branding now. So the press release that I'm using now, your name goes by Cannabis Business Attorney. Cannabis Business Attorney. It's just like Steve Jobs, and we get that out there enough and enough and enough. Who's the Cannabis Business Attorney? They type that, you. Especially if you get your website. The keyword, Mr. Nashville knows how to design them now, but he's not updated on SEO yet. But the Wix does have like an SEO checker. So he's learned. He started as a video guy, and now he's almost everything. He's going to be a press guy, he's going to be a graphics guy, he's going to be a web design guy. So it's the bank, I don't know how to do it.
Any better? Okay.
That really didn't help, so.
Good, everything? Awesome. I just want to make sure. Okay, cool. All right, folks. Thank you. Yeah.
Deborah, have your guest if you're ready.
Wonderful, I'm ready.
Okay.
Oh.
Thank you. Good morning, Dr. Fredman.
Oh,
How are you?
I'm fine. This is Deborah.
Yes. And I have a little bit of program leaking through. Some music, Doctor. Nope, it's still there. It's like a drum beat music bed with trumpets. Okay. Sorry, Dr. Feldman, just a little glitch, then we'll get going.
No problem.
Nope. Okay. It's programmed. No, it's not very light. I'm so sorry. I don't think I can work this way. Still there, a lot together. It's a news program about bikers and melee.
If you guys want, do you want to hang up and we can get started again? Will that work, do you think?
Okay. In the meantime, Dr. Feldman, do you have any questions for me before we start?
No, I don't.
Okay. It's just pretty much a conversation. It's not so cut and dried as the, ask a question, learn and answer. It's more like a conversation.
Right. I think you interviewed me before, did you, Deb?
Oh, that's right. That's right. Goodness. Sorry.
I think we were talking about how to buy a used car or something.
Probably. Okay. So, welcome back. Sorry about this little glitch. First time ever.
So, hey, Deborah, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you okay, yes. Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, it sounds like you're in the Sahara Desert.
It sounds like what?
Sounds like you're in the Sahara Desert.
Yeah. I don't know what it is. It's just some little program that has to be silent.
No, I believe
It's definitely a new show.
Is it coming from your window? I mean, is it not? I mean, I'm using a VoIP, so I don't know if there's any chance of punching through to my side.
I think it's a source at the radio studios in Florida where this is initiated from. I'm in California. Yeah, it's very odd. Never had this before. So sorry, doctor.
Oh, it's okay. It gave me about a minute. So.
Yeah, me too. Oh, good. So Cape Town is so lovely. So lovely. I like to call it Dossies on the top of Table Mountain.
Hey, what was it, Deborah?
I was trying to remember the name of those little animals that live on the top of Table
Oh, the
Mountain.
Dusties, yeah.
Little Dossies? I call them.
Yeah, it's like a little rodent.
Yeah.
It's like a little rabbit rodent.
I love that. I gotta get
Oh,
back
you've been
there.
there before?
Oh, twice, yeah.
Really? Wow.
Loved it. And I went to Durban, Cape Town, Joburg, Swaziland, all around. It's been just the two most fabulous trips of my whole life. Hands down.
Yeah.
Do you get back there?
I've only been back once in 2007 I went back.
Oh wow, that's a shame.
So no doubt you went to the winelands,
Yes. Yeah.
the wine farm.
Absolutely. Stellenbosch.
Yeah, how does that compare to the Napa Valley?
I think it's far more beautiful. It's more lush. The mountains are, oh God, they're just, you just can't stop looking at them. And of course, the Dutch architecture there is
They're striking, and it's
striking.
huge.
Yeah. I mean, you just never want to leave. And you sit under the tables and these white iron chairs and sip the wine and look at those mountains and just think, wow, it doesn't get any better than this.
I left to another board, it'd be about 15 seconds.
Yeah, and then you go to Johannesburg, and you say, oh yeah, it definitely would.
Yeah. But Johannesburg has its charms too.
Did you go to one of the gold mines?
No, I didn't get to do that. I felt a little queasy about
Yeah.
it. Did not do that, but you know, I could be talking to it. We did go to Soweto.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Did you go to Khayelitsha when you were in Cape Town?
No, we didn't. Khayelitsha?
The rolling squatter camp just outside the airport.
Oh, no. I did go to Canada, which is a private game reserve, which was just stunning.
Did you go walking in there? Did you go walking, or did you go sort of on a?
Well, we weren't supposed to go walking, but that's much better. Whatever you did. But we got our Jeep got stuck in the mud, so we had to walk. It was a little scary because the whole time he was saying, "Keep everything in the Jeep: your hands, your face, everything."
Right.
And then suddenly we're walking, so it felt a
And then
little.
they just stay together.
Yeah. Oh, scary though.
Hey, Deborah, before you start, your voice really soft. Is there any way that you can amplify your voice so that I can hear you better?
I am at max level here. Maybe they can turn me up in the studio. I'm happy to report that I no longer have that news source. Okay, I'll just speak up and then.
No, that whatever you've done is better.
Okay, great. Okay. Fantastic, thank you. Okay, no problem. Welcome to our show. This is your weekly dose of wellness. I'm Deborah Howe, and today's guest is Dr. Gary Feldman, Medical Director, Stransky Children's Development.
Anyway, I was wondering if we got the letter with the process list, maybe a few more on the way. It's gonna be fun. Yeah. Okay.
Leave it open.
Okay.
Yep.
I think I'm just gonna email and stuff.
Oh, to Jared?
Yeah.
Here, dude.
You can send it in a text message. Your phone can't do that. You can only do one at a time.
What do you mean? It's not big enough to take both.
Like it won't take more than one image at a time, is what I'm saying.
Really?
Yeah.
Here.
Hey. Oh, never mind.
Josh.
Yeah.
Now watch. Share. There you go. It's done.
I'm going to see if you got that. Process.
Hey, just because we got women,
Yeah,
that's right. It's like art.
David should say that.
You know how hard that's been for me, buddy? And you know what's funny? Derek, I've always told you, everyone, honestly, yeah, terrible now. Yeah, I hear you. Okay. Yep. I can't eat this. Gosh,
It's a little too much of a sweet tooth, huh?
yeah, dude, no. Like too much sleep with my stomach churn. Do you want the rest of this brownie? Oh, all I did was cut it before.
Hold on. Here's one.
Hey, you don't do the traffic for K-High.
No, no.
Well, I didn't know if my spot. See, hey, Jared,
Okay, cool. Yeah, I just wanted to have the big process.
Man, so now you're Captain Cannabis kind of. So, well, do we see Captain Cannabis coming out soon?
In wrestling?
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
no chance.
No chance of that.
No chance. I mean, you never say never. Let's face it. Never say never.
You never know what's going to happen.
Right. You never know what's going to happen. I have no plans.
Okay. All right. Well, so what do you get out there? And since you got the fans know that, but I mean, as far as the marijuana that's going around Oklahoma, they're trying to sue, Colorado.
Right.
And
So,
Nebraska.
I can't really speak for all the Oklahomans out there because,
Yeah,
I ran into a
and it
bunch of
just, boy, it's,
Oklahoma residents and some of my friends that are extremely passionate about cannabis. But I do notice, and you notice anywhere you go there, that when you talk about cannabis with people, they kind of look around to make sure no one's listening. It's not like down here where you can openly talk about cannabis and not too many people care. Oklahoma, if you talk to somebody about cannabis, even somebody who's passionate about it, they kind of like almost shrivel up into themselves and then talk to you quietly about it.
Right.
So it's
Yeah, of course.
I'm assuming that
we've got
there's a generation of people in Oklahoma that are still very much against cannabis legalization. But even in Oklahoma, the walls of prohibition are crumbling, and they're crumbling at an accelerated rate, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely it is. But I think also, too, is this mentality that people in Oklahoma have against people who smoke marijuana. Yeah, I believe that they know someone who smokes marijuana, and that person might not have gotten the job that everyone expected that person to get. Maybe the guy didn't really meet everyone's expectations in life.
Oh, yeah. But then some of them it's like, okay. Now, and then I go, I didn't see any CCs to check that in the city of Oak.
Do you think that's a blame on marijuana or for people to use as an excuse to hate on it?
I think, definitely for some people, absolutely. I think the marijuana use in those states has been framed the way it's been. I was brought up thinking that way, I was confident to believe that cannabis was a bad drug.
Because that email came around a while back. He should do that soon. I just don't want to let it sit too long. He sent that. The email that he sent to her was on
it wasn't until I got
May 12th. Oh,
so
May 12th. So this is only the 19th.
Just accept what I was told as fact and start to question things. That's when my eyes started to open up and go, everything I was taught about cannabis prior to 28 years old was an outright lie.
And people don't question things, and that's why they maintain that mentality from 1936 that got started by evil. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back.
Yep.
We're going to hit this ball.
Okay, I'm just about to do City Road now, so I'll talk to you later on.
Riding shotgun. Our intern for the day is Dave Wisniewski
Hello?
from Arizona. He's going to be with us once a week, if not twice.
I'm here.
So you guys hang tight. We'll come back. K-High. It's Let's Talk.
K-High Weed Radio.
Jerry Leonard of Scottsdale, GreenbeltHomes.com. Your drive with gas, man.
It gets even better.
The rods are also attached to the puppet's elbows and shoulder joints for easy manipulation.
Hello.
I've been going to this high school.
We don't have to have 10 minutes. We can try and call him now.
I know dummies. Some people can say,
Oh, really? Is this Matt? Ben, you're going to tell me to pipe down? I didn't hear the but Kevin told me part. Oh, no. You're the one who said it. It's the messenger, dude. See, that's what I'm saying. That's messed up, man. Telling me to pipe down. You can only tell me to pipe down when you've known me a little longer.
I do remember. Do I look like you thought I would? Ooh, turn down freaking weed radio on me there. I don't want to listen to weed radio unless I'm freaking smoking weed radio. Yeah, you did. I look like you thought I would? I'm a lot taller than you expected, aren't I?
Yeah, definitely. These guys were saying you were 6 feet.
Yeah, I'm tall and blonde. You know. I hope Kevin's not mad at me. I told him.